What are they doing? What is everybody up to? But we'll come back to this because it's been a very nail-biting and busy week on Nigeria's economic and market street. That ends today. Thank God it's Friday. So from the rate policy hold meeting of the central bank to the highly inflammable fuel subsidy retention to the Petroleum Industry Act, which is now going back to the drawing board, and the Boa Cement multi-million-dollar new facility in Sokoto State, there's not one single time that moment we had enough on the table to choose. So economists and analysts are poring over all these headlines. Joining me to wrap up the week with a two-part insightful analysis is a development economist, Professor Ken Ife, live to us from our Abuja studios. Professor, it's good to have you. Welcome to the show tonight. You have a whole lot to think about this week, I'm sure. Fuel subsidy, removal suspension, budget 2022, going back to the drawing board, the PIA also has to be reshaped. How much fiscal head scratching do you think lies ahead for Nigeria in the short to the medium term?
Well, it's going to be a little more difficult, but it's just not unsurmountable. The fact being that with the revision of the upward revision of the subsidy to 3 trillion, that will obviously degrade the ratios that we have been very, very comfortable with. But not notwithstanding, I do know that events around the planned borrowing by the government, for example, over 6 trillion borrowing, 2.57 will be domestic, 2.57 trillion will be foreign, and 1.16 will be multilateral and bilateral. So one would hope that more of the borrowing would be local, that is domestic. And that, you know, in going for those securities, government securities, they could up the yield a bit to attract a lot of investors, and they reduce the money that is in circulation. In other words, inversely helping the inflation situation and having to cope with the new rise. But of course, the big story would be, besides the $5 billion which NNPC is getting from AFREXIMBANK, when they do now go to market, I will be looking at trillions of naira going to come in to the government coffer. Remember that this is not unconnected to what happened in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian government needed $25 billion. They didn't go to World Bank or IMF. They said, give me the value of Saudi Aramco. It came to about 1.5 trillion. They said, I want 5% of it, go to the market. And they got the money that they wanted. So similar thing will be playing out with the NNPC. So I'm much more confident that we will ride that storm.
Professor Ife, you just touched on a very important point with the Saudi Aramco and the NNPC Limited now becomes the limited liability. $5 billion from AFREXIMBANK, by whatever exchange rate you use, that's a whole lot of money. Is that a confidence sign? Is that a signal that the NNPC is still worth a whole lot of money in the kitty, despite the downside that the refineries are not functioning?
No, it's a sweetener. I see that $5 billion as a sweetener. It's confidence of the AFREXIM and other banking community that, you know, we're going into something mega. And don't forget, this is just upstream. We're going to have midstream investment. We're going to have downstream investment. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We would see some radical changes in the financing and investment in the country.
Let's switch gear quickly to talk about the macroeconomic issues that are connected with the central bank policy hold rate decision of Tuesday. How do you take that?
No, I'm really happy with that because the central bank is aware of all the headwinds, global headwinds, occasioned by increase in there's inflation all over the world. And they're all fighting it. But then they're also aware that the Federal Reserve Bank is ended quantitative easing, and of course they are now going to push the rates, the base rates. So everybody's, I mean, look at markets, Asian markets, everybody's reacting to that. But we don't want to jump the gun. Because don't forget that as far as central bank is concerned, they are looking at how to support growth and diversification and employment using a policy mix that responds to the reality of what Nigeria's situation is. So it's not jumping the gun. And don't forget again, next month, hopefully by the end of next month, we will be normalizing some of those low lending rates that were brought down from 9% to 5%, so maybe going up. So it's just not to be expected that they should have so many balls in the air. So let's see how that goes, and then let's gradually begin to focus on other quantitative measures to tame inflation in this year. I think probably their focus would actually be on combating price stability.
But one of the balls that the fiscal authorities in Nigeria is juggling is the Petroleum Industry Act, which everyone seemed to be really happy that we're able to resolve after nearly 2 decades. But here it is, the PIA, which is supposed to support the fiscal space, is going back to the drawing board, in the manner of speaking.
I'm not sure. Actually, that is very revolutionary. The decision is a very bold decision to give assent to the fiscal responsibility, that the PIA. So, but then the PIA, don't forget that the revenue, the FIRS has anticipated almost doubling of their revenue to over 10 trillion this year. And apart from that, other things going on in terms of the potential capitalization of the NNPC heading out into the market, many other things. And of course, also remember that about 30% of the hydrocarbon tax is going for frontline basin expenditure on exploration and exploitation. And that is one of the major reasons why you're having a sustained rise in the price of crude over the next 3 years. So that's because many countries are not investing, many investors are not investing in upstream. And Nigeria is. And of course, you can see we're also borrowing more money to them. So that means we are more confident we are going to have enough petrol, crude there to sell in the market. That is not the same story with many others. And then, of course, the COVID situation, the recovery of many industrialized countries means more demand, rising demand for the crude. So high price of crude, obviously, it has a knock-on effect on our petrol prices because the price is in dollars. So as the price rises, our petroleum cost rises, our subsidy also rises. So, but we're still going to be better off when all chips are down.
When all chips are down, we are down now for this part of the conversation. We'll stand by Professor Ife, and everyone will return to you for more after this break. We'll be right back. I'm drilling for more perspectives into some of Nigeria's biggest economic and business news of the week with Professor Ken Ife from Abuja Studios. Professor, thank you very much for standing by. The Central Bank Governor, Emefiele, spoke highly of the cement backward integration program of the government. That was yesterday at the Boa Cement event in Sokoto State. Do you think the local cement production success can be replicated in key other sectors such as agriculture?
No, I think so. I think so because why I'm confident that that will happen is not quite exactly the same circumstance, but nevertheless, what is different is here. The attack on agriculture is not only to sustain food security, but also to provide adequate industrial raw materials for the industry to process and have value addition, and not only to also displace the imports of the agricultural produce, but also to export. So you have 3 major things that the agricultural program is facing. How does it compare with the cement? It compares with the cement, one, where you have anchor borrowers program with prime anchors. Prime anchors are the big boys, I mean like Dangote and Olam, that are doing 50,000 hectares. So they are there and they are repaying. They are paying almost 90% of their debt. So that is good news. But there is an added momentum that an army of 4.5 million farmers, agribusiness farmers, have actually got loan without collateral just by using BVN technology and then satellite technology to identify the land where they are doing whatever they are doing. And then we have de-risking of the agricultural space to give the banking sector the confidence to lend. And they are lending over 5 million hectares. And then you saw the evidence with the rice pyramid that was exhibited. And many more of these pyramids are going to be done in the States. Just to show you, and don't forget that that is farmers repaying their loan with paddy. And that will happen with maize. So what I expect is that immediately after the show, this will be released to millers to mill the rice and get it out into the market to reduce the surge in inflation.
Sometimes I begin to ask Professor Ife, how did we get it so wrong in Nigeria with agriculture having started so well, as it were, in the early days of the country's history? What went wrong?
Right. What happened was that in the 60s, we all heard about the Granite Pyramid, the success in oil palm in the southeast, and then the cocoa and all the rubber. We saw all that success. But at that time, it was led by the regional governments. And their strategy was they had a marketing board that was aggregating produce, ensuring quality, and then handling exports. We also had plantations. And they were getting fiscal incentives because most of them were getting 50% of the tax back. So at some point, even 100%. But immediately after the war in the 70s, all that we were doing was only oil and solid mineral, and the agricultural thing was out of the window. So there was no incentive for them to continue. So they all left all those big plantations all over the country. Now a new boy on the block became the Minister of Agriculture, Federal Agriculture and State Agriculture, now leading the charge. Now, so what it means is that we are having a public-led agricultural production system, agricultural development program. So when you ask somebody in 2014, what are the challenges of agriculture? You say, oh, the dams. We don't have dams, and the dams we have are not giving us water for irrigation. We don't have rural roads. We don't have grains, seeds, and then fertilizer. Hundreds of billions of naira are spent on importing fertilizer. But what happens? They are delivered to the states, and then you see some commissioners carrying those containers, those trailers to go and sell them. And by the time the farmer gets the seed, the farming season is over. So in the end, and that program does not address the critical need of the farmer for access to finance or the input that they need, the timely input delivery for them to, and then a structure that allows them to integrate what they are doing to the supply chain. But that has all changed. So what happened is that because the CBN in 2017 exited about 34 items from the forex eligibility, and then decided to, okay, I'm not going to sit back, let's do something. That was why you had the backward integration in agriculture. And that has transformed the agricultural space. And now we have integration going to take place with the likes of this SEZ, that is Special Economic Zones, and the aggregation of produce, and then you have all this 100 for 100. All of these are coming to fill the void and then make sure that the linkage between primary production and processing and export and domestic is closed.
Professor Ife, where are the issues we have about? I'm sure we have several dozens of dams in Nigeria, so irrigation and water shouldn't be a problem. The country is also blessed
about 400. About 400 of them.
Which were funded.
But now they are using them. They are using some of them for dry season farming, and the Anchor Brewers program are backing them to use them for dry season farming. Even aquaculture is being rolled out to use some of those dams for aquaculture in the spillway. So some of these are actually happening because the farmers are now touching the resources in a timely manner. They are getting fertilizer that are fit for the purpose, not one size fits all that is broadcasted across the country. So the whole terrain has changed. You now have commercial agriculture at our doorstep.
What about, you talk about commodity boards, Professor, you talk about commodity boards. What about commodity exchanges? Part of the value chain for agriculture if we're going to do serious backward integration.
Yeah, but they're coming in now. You heard the announcement of Dr. Aisha, of Deputy Governor, chairing the commodity exchange. And then you're going to see more action there. And then all these strategic grain reserves that we have up and down the country, you're going to see more integration of those in the supply chain.
Well, now, so you just talked about special economic agro processing. 7 Nigerian governors were in the AFDB headquarters in Abuja this week towards the takeoff of a special agriculture processing zones in Nigeria. President Buhari is expected to flag it off in February, which is next month, just about a week from now. Are you encouraged by this development that we're getting the special agriculture special zones up and running in Nigeria, 7 states across the Federation?
No, it's music to my ear, and I think it's the way to go. We have over 34 FTZ, free trade zones, up and down the country, but the special economic zone is very broad, and the cluster, if you have sufficient number of companies in agriculture, for example, then they can have irradiation facility, which one person can afford. You can have an irradiation facility. You can have cold chain. You can have cold chain logistics. You can have export conditioning center. All of these are resources that they can all pool and then use. And then you go to the seaport, and at the airport you can have a fresh fruit port. So all of those are going to be possible because of this approach. So it is a game changer in terms of fulfilling the last mile in our journey to export.
So this week is, do you think we've been very lucky, something in our stars? Here is the AFREXIMBANK with $5 billion for the NNPC Limited, and there is the AFDB, Dr. Akumi Adesina, in a handshake with 7 state governors in Nigeria over a special agriculture zone. So between the agriculture space and the oil and gas space, do you think it's a good time for Nigeria? How do you think we can leverage all of this moving forward so that we don't lose momentum as we go into the electioneering year period fully?
Well, I think this good news, just tells us just how lucky we are to have our men in the helm of affairs. How about the WTO? Ngozi Okonjo, they're all coming together and showing that great patriotism, to support the economy. But I think that more of this is going to come from the NNPC, because when you look at how we are going to decisively tackle this, what I call it, this PMS issue,
yes,
we are going to tackle it because there's going to be more to do with midstream and downstream investment. And then you also see that all the 75 people are giving modular licenses. I'm sure money is going to come to get them all into the fray, to start producing, so that we can kiss goodbye to this whole shenanigan called the subsidy, petroleum subsidy.
Professor, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much, Professor Ken Ife, development economist. We really appreciate your insight into the business and markets we carry in Nigeria. Have a great weekend and see you next time.